Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays postgame shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll-free. 877-566-1020 or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC.
The Rays were not able to complete the season series sweep of the Anaheim Angels, but this weekend they come away with another series victory. It is a good evening to you, and how you be. William Haynes here. You are there at 1:54 on this Tuesday morning. As always, the William Haynes Show live from the WHBC studio in Clearwater, Florida. Number to call the show, 877-566-1020. You can also share your thoughts with us on Twitter at WHBC Official. We'll read your thoughts on the air, all that good stuff. So what we have on deck on the show tonight, this morning, whatever you want to say. I know I promised you a show Monday night. It is technically Tuesday morning, but call it close enough as we are getting on the air to discuss the 3-game set over the weekend against the Angels before heading into the 2-game set on this Tuesday and Wednesday in our nation's capital against a pretty toasty Washington Nationals team. That's going to be an interesting interleague series. But first and foremost, we have the weekend series to discuss. The Rays take it 2-1. They win the first 2 and they lose on Sunday. And what was a little bit disappointing and left a bit of a sour taste in your mouth with the bullpen giving up a couple of runs, and also with Boston with a weekend series sweep of the New York Yankees in Fenway and their win over Kansas City also in Boston tonight. They now have a full 1-game lead on the Rays in the American League East, even with the Rays taking 2 of 3 from the Red Sox in the trop early last week. So a couple things to not be so happy about, but I think what really is important is another series victory and a couple straight for the Rays after coming back off that horrible 7-game losing streak that I think is thankfully behind us, and this team is back like that never really happened, and I think is mostly firing on all cylinders. Hopefully the bullpen slip up is not a sign of things to come, but of course you really like what the offense did, and I think we really got some good strong signs from the starting pitching. Shane McClanahan and Ryan Yarbrough mainly over the course of the weekend, and then Josh Fleming had another decent solid outing as well. And then heading into the Nats series is going to be Rich Hill and Michael Wacha as the team completes another turn through the rotation. And as we've made a lot of right after that Glasnow injury a couple weeks ago, in Chicago. That first turn through the rotation after, and mind you, it was during that 7-game losing streak where it seemed like the whole team was kind of feeling down on their luck. But all the starters really performed horribly. I mean, even Yarbrough and Hill struggled a little bit. Shane McClanahan had one of his more ugly starts, as a starter this year. Michael Wacha, of course, gave up, I think, 11 hits in Seattle. Anyone in the starting rotation, you name it, had a pretty bad outing after that Glasnow injury. But the second turn through, and I think we're completing it and might now be coming around another turn, have looked much stronger. I think give some credit to Mike Zunino as the catcher. He has gone a long way in, it seems like, helping these pitchers have some good starts. Shane McClanahan mostly. We said that going into a start this weekend that there really should not be any more Shane McClanahan starts with Francisco Mejia catching him, because it seems like for whatever reason they're never on the same page and the sequencing isn't as good and he gets into some more trouble. But I think you could especially tell on Saturdays, and kind of opening up the playbook a little bit for Shane. I think Zunino, a veteran catcher, has a good understanding of where his pitchers are, and McClanahan in his first real season as a major league starting pitcher. You could tell, early, whether you're talking about, May or even in early June, a little bit more limited on what they were doing. But I think on Saturday we got a peek into what's to come from McClanahan. Really fastballs early in the count, was dropping some curveballs, changeups, and then when he would get to 0-2, 1-2, whatever, he would drop that slider, that devastating, quick, snapping slider that goes down and into right-handers, and was getting some good chase, swing, and miss with 2 strikes. So stuff like that, I think, is a good sign, and especially moving forward as we're in the final days of June, so we are just about halfway through the season, and I think we'll be hitting game number 81 any day now, which is, of course, the exact halfway point of the season, and of course the All-Star break coming up in just a couple of weeks now, so it is hard to believe how quick this has snuck up on us. So but any way you slice it, I think the Rays are in great shape, even with the Boston stuff. I know it could get into kind of a pennant race scenario, the longer this goes, and if the Red Sox refuse to kind of cool off and continue on this run they've been on. But I think for right now, you kind of just have to keep that out of your mind. We'll be scoreboard watching, of course, the rest of the year, but I think if the Rays just continue to win series like this, even just taking 2 of 3 from the Angels at home, I think is still good enough, because, again, if you win pretty much every series you play, you're going to be stacking a lot of wins by the end of the season, and we're not even halfway through, and the Rays are to almost 50 wins, so on pace for high 90s or maybe even triple-digit amount of wins this year. So no matter what the Red Sox do, the Yankees, Blue Jays, whatever, the Rays are still in a terrific position to make a nice run at the postseason this year, and obviously nothing has changed from that standpoint. After the loss to the Angels on Sunday, the Rays dropped to 47 and 32, which puts them at 15 games above 500, and they're of course on that terrific run where they have won 16, or they've gone 16 and 4 over their last 20 home games. So they had started pretty rough in the season at the Trop, and the runners and scoring position failures. I don't need to remind you about that, but I think that's another strong point that you feel good about. A point of encouragement is that this team is playing so good at home, because you look back to 2018 and 2019, the last 2 real seasons that were regular and normal during this run that this franchise has been on. A big backbone of those teams is success at home. And then I know lately we've strayed away from that a little bit, and the stuff about Road Willie, and Adames hitting much better on the road, and some players having better road splits than home. But of course, and especially as fans return, that's not necessarily sustainable. But if you can play consistent and feel comfortable stacking wins in your own building, you play half your games there, and anytime you can do that and feel good about coming home, no matter who you're playing, the Red Sox, Yankees, down the stretch, whoever, that's a good sign. And so I think a lot of things are coming together in the right direction, and there's a lot of good things to feel good about the team. So those are my big picture kind of main takeaways from the weekend. And of course, we've still got Wander Franco stuff to talk about, and really all the hitters having a great weekend, maybe except Wander Franco coming away with just 1 hit over the course of the 3 days, and I would imagine he'll play probably every game this week as well with the off day today. So the Wander Franco watch is not going away anytime soon. It doesn't look like he's going to be sent down anytime soon. I believe he's here to stay, at least for now. So very many interesting things to discuss, and I know we always run long. I'm sure I'll end up going an hour and a half tonight, whatever the case may be. But if any, as I always say, tonight would be the night to keep it short, and we'll do our best to keep it within, an hour, maybe even 45 minutes. God forbid tonight is the night that we do that. So we're going to take a short break. When we return, recapping the weekend series against the Angels that I've been kind of tiptoeing around, and then also previewing the 2-game set in DC against the Nationals to close the show. It'll be an interesting series, maybe not like super important, but another chance to gauge ourselves against maybe not one of the game's best teams, but one of the game's hottest teams. And so if they can go into their building and kind of shut them down like the Rays have been wont to do the last couple years, then we can talk about the team going red hot into the All-Star break and going from there. So again, number to call during the break, 877-566-1020. You can also tweet us your thoughts at WHBC Official. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Hey Rays fans, William will be right back. We're in a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us internationally toll-free at 877-566-1020. Or tweet us your thoughts at WHBC Official. Also, we'd like you to stay tuned for William's other podcasting projects at speaker.com/user/WHBC.
HBC. And at 2:04 on this Tuesday morning, we return on the William Haynes Show, and again, giving it to you one more time before we dive into the nitty-gritty of things. Number to call the program, 877-566-1020 for the duration of the show. We'll keep the line open. You can also tweet us your thoughts at WHBC Official, and as always, make sure you're following us on there if you're not already, to make sure you get this show whenever it goes live as we dive back into our regularly scheduled programming of doing the regular post-game shows, and I believe we'll be able to hit that, for the next couple weeks going into the All-Star break. But without further ado, the weekend series against the Angels, they take the Friday and Saturday contests and then lose the Sunday game, and we'll go in chronological order, starting, of course, with the Friday night game. This was the day after the 1-0 walk-off wild pitch against the Boston Red Sox, so of course, maybe not necessarily a letdown effect, but it was big for the team to be able to kind of take the rubber match from their AL East rival and things like that. And it was important that they continued that momentum going into the weekend, of course, because Boston was not going to cool off anytime soon. And as I mentioned earlier, they had a weekend sweep of their own against the New York Yankees at home. So maybe not just the Red Sox heating up, but I think the Yankees might be going away for good. And I don't even think that's necessarily a controversial statement with how they've looked. They're only a couple games over 500. But either way, Friday night, it was a Rays 4-3 win. It did not get off to such a good start for the Rays. It was Andrew Kittredge on the mound opening for Josh Fleming. And right out of the gate, boom, leadoff home run, 453 feet. It was estimated to right field for Shohei Ohtani, and of course he was the main attraction for the Angels this weekend, with Mike Trout remaining on the injured list with that calf issue. So anyone coming out to see the team, the Halos from Anaheim, Shohei Ohtani was likely the reason why, even though he did not get a start on the mound. But he did lead it off with a bang, and I think it hit off the D-ring, and very rarely do we get to see a ball hit with that kind of power. But Shohei Ohtani, I think, and I mean, I think had a couple of decent starts at the Trop. He's also hit for the cycle at Tropicana Field, so it's not like baseball fans in the Tampa Bay area were not already aware of what he could do. But he had another couple of really good games. Almost hit for the cycle on Sunday. Of course, I think hit a couple of home runs over the course of the weekend. Dropped down a bunt single, stole a base. Anything really that he could have done at the plate, he was able to accomplish, and it is amazing just to take a second with what Ohtani is accomplishing this year. I think, at least right now, would be the unquestioned MVP of the American League. Not only can he throw 100 miles an hour off the mound and has been a pretty decent pitcher, even just if you look at that side of his box, the stat line, but his hitting is, I think, by far even more impressive, which is a compliment all on its own. But I think he's leading the majors right now in, 26 or 27 home runs, so he's on pace maybe to hit 50, 55, which would be absolutely insane, but is also a tremendous average hitter, as he's hitting, near 270 right now. Can steal bases, I think has, 10 or 11 of those, and is just all around a great player. I mean, really the first genuine two-way guy probably since Babe Ruth, and the fact that it's been 100 years since we've seen a player like that, we really are witnessing history. And so if you were lucky enough to go out to the Trop this weekend, you saw certainly a good show put on by the man called Shohei. The home run for Ohtani to lead off the game, it was on an Andrew Kittredge, a very rare pitch of his that he utilizes, the changeup. Like Castillo, he's mainly a sinker slider guy, and I guess when I see it, it's just kind of like a slider with less break to it, which, I mean, when you think about it that way, why would you want to throw it that much? It was about 90-91 with no horizontal movement, and just, kind of dipped down like a weak kind of sinker pitch. And Ohtani was not fooled by it at all and just really connected to it. A couple of guys out of the pen that I think may be coming down to earth a little bit. Andrew Kittredge, Ryan Thompson, to name two, and then maybe even Matt Whistler, but that might be a little overreaction just because of the one home run allowed to Gosselin on Sunday. But I think two guys, especially Kittredge, and not that he's going to be bad by any means. He's still pitching to an ERA under 2 at basically 1.7. So it's really terrific, and I think even if he keeps it under 2, that's a terrific season for him after coming off the injury where he thought he might need Tommy John, in August of last year. So the fact that he's even pitching but is maybe looking as good as he ever has in a Rays uniform, I think that's impressive all in itself, and we've mentioned it a bunch. He's pitched everywhere from the first to the 12th inning, and everywhere in between he's appeared, in all those. So really you can use him wherever you want, and has been decent as an opener. Not so much lately, though. Couldn't get out of the first inning against Boston early last week, and did go 2 innings on Friday in the 4-3 win, but of course gave up the leadoff home run to Ohtani, and after getting a couple of outs, gave up another home run, this one to Anthony Rendon. Rendon, by the way, after signing that massive contract with the Angels going into the 2020 season after having an MVP caliber year with the 2019 World Series champs Nationals, I think he's only hit like 4 or 5 home runs this year, and I think 2 or 3 of them have been against the Rays. So he's doing all of his damage against Tampa Bay this year, which is, I just think, kind of cracks me up the way things go for us sometimes. But that one was, I think, just off of a fastball that was placed at the bottom of the zone that maybe could have been a little bit better, but he's been getting a lot of swing on and miss on that pitch, so it's not necessarily too bad. Kittredge going into the start had only allowed 2 home runs all season, so the fact that he gave up another 2 in just an inning of work It's not indicative of him as a pitcher, and to me, he's more of just a blip on what is overall, as I was pointing out, a very good season for Kittredge out of the pen or even on the mound to start the game. And then as well, he pitched a 1-2-3 in the second to give Josh Fleming a bit of a soft landing spot and set them up good for the late game, because Fleming going to 3 2/3, that gets you basically almost through 6. And Fleming, not a guy that you want seeing the rotation at third time through, and he did not do that. Didn't face any guy more than twice, and that was only about half the order. So lined everything up the way that they wanted to, and Kittredge, even though giving up the 2 home runs, 2 runs over 2 innings is not horrible, and it does still give you the team a chance to win if the guys behind you pitch well, and they did, only giving up 1 more run over the course of the remaining 7 innings, and that was an unearned run allowed by Josh Fleming. But after that 2-0 deficit that the Halos issued the Rays, going into the bottom of the first, the Rays respond with 3 of their own, getting the leadoff man aboard, and Yandy Diaz. Choi walked to make it first and second with nobody out, and then Wander Franco was able to put the ball in the air, and it was in and out of the mitt of the Angels left fielder Taylor Ward, who I think he had a bad series defensively, as really did the rest of the team. Much like that series in Los Angeles, Anaheim, basically, that 4-game sweep of the Angels that the Rays handed them midway through last month. A big part of that 4-game sweep was just some poor defensive play by the Angels, and that really continued into this series. And you would think with a Joe Madden managed team that they would maybe be a little bit more prepared for that, but it seems like that happens a lot where road teams come in that don't play in the Trop a lot and just have trouble finding the baseball. And so Wander Franco, and I know a lot was made over the course of the weekend of his struggles at the plate, and I think when it was at its worst, I think an 0-for-16 or 0-for-17 stretch that he broke out of with a single on Sunday that we'll talk about. But he was able to put the ball in the air with some authority. He continued his trend of the last couple days against Boston of just taking pitches early in the count, and sometimes it had worked, and he had worked, I think, 3 walks against Boston, and then there were times where he would just go down 0-2 and then maybe chase a pitch or just kind of swing through one, whatever the case, or even take strike 3. He did that, I think, once this weekend, and he made hard contact off of a slider on a 2-2 pitch. So even though it was an error, it still put the ball in play with some authority, and it did score a run, and then they were able to keep the ball rolling with a 2 RBI single for Austin Meadows. And statistically, he had a good weekend, and he went 3 for 4 on Friday. But it just, I don't know, it's something about Meadows. He's going to end up having a great statistical season, but I'm just not really feeling it with him right now. But he got a fastball up in the zone that he could do some damage to, and so the Rays were able to respond with 3 runs of their own and take a 3-2 lead after the first inning. And after that, they did not do a whole lot. The only other run that they got over the course of the game was a bases-loaded pinch hit by pitch for Brandon Lau. I mean, you don't get to say that very often, but that is indeed what happened. It was, again, a leadoff walk for Yandy Diaz, a walk for G-Man Choi, and the pitcher on the mound at that time, Jose Suarez, just completely lost his control. I think issued 8 or 9 straight balls, and as I say all the time, the only thing you could do in that spot is just take what the pitcher is giving you, and if you do that, a lot of times you're going to walk away with some runs scored. And then after that, it was Austin Meadows with 1 out and first and second, which was a routine, pop-up flat, whatever. And again, the left fielder, Taylor Ward, lost it, and I think whether it was the shortstop, second baseman, third baseman, a bunch of guys came over, and no one was able to get their eye on the ball and track it, and so it just fell down harmlessly. And so with 1 out, the runners weren't running on contact. All they were able to do was advance 90 feet. So loaded the bases with 1 out, so there was still some work to be done. It was Manuel Margot going up against, I think at that time it was the righty Steve Cishek. And so they counter with the lefty bat, Brandon Lau. and I think it was on an 0-1 or an 0-2, something like that. He ends up getting hit by a pitch. So we've been seeing a lot of that lately, guys, in big situations getting nailed by a pitch, and I don't know really what to say about that other than good for taking one for the team and wearing it, and especially in that spot in what was a tie game in the 7th inning with the bases loaded to take that. That was good, and gave them the 4-3 lead, and thanks to some strong bullpen play, they were able to hold on, and they put the next 6 batters in a row down in order. It was a 1-2-3 in the 8th for Matt Whistler, including a strikeout looking of Jared Walsh and a couple of groundouts to first, one for Rengifo and one from Rendon. And slider heavy as always, mixing in a couple of fastballs. I think right now the recency bias is strong with him giving up a home run on Sunday, but has been strong. I think he's pitching to an ERA of around 2 in the month of June, and that was even a couple of appearances with San Francisco before coming over in the trade. So, and it was not bad in May either. It was just a really bad month of April that contributed to, I think, like the 6.5 ERA he had coming in to Tampa Bay, and I think it was in his first 6 or 7 consecutive appearances for the Rays, he put up zeros in an inning of work whenever he came into the game, and 13 pitches, 9 strikes was very effective. And then it was Diego Castillo closing the door in the 9th for his 12th save of the season. Ended up striking out the side, 16 pitches, 10 of them for strikes, and was laying down a lot of sliders. I was concerned maybe about the velo being down because I think a lot of people have been worried about that with Diego. The last month or so, he hasn't looked exactly quite right. Maybe not the guy that he was in 2018 or 2019, but maybe we're just not going to get that guy, and it's just you get something similar, but those nasty wiffle ball type pitches with all kinds of ludicrous movement, those days may be behind us, but again, striking out the side in the 9th in a 4-3 game is still very, very impressive, and did it with a lot of sliders. A couple front doors, to righties that he seemed like he didn't necessarily have a great touch for, but then was getting the traditional down and away from the right-handers, and he was getting some swing and miss well outside of the zone, which tells you that the pitches were doing its job of deceiving the hitter. And it didn't throw a lot of fastballs, but mixed in just enough and got it about 95, 96. So it looks like the velo is there. Maybe he's not incredibly comfortable going to the sinker, but I would like to see more of an even mix of the pitches, because typically when I think of Castillo, I think of the flamethrower, not the guy that's throwing 85-mile-an-hour sliders. But I would say out of his 16 pitches, probably 12 or 13 of them were sliders. So not a lot of fastballs there, but striking out the side and some really big swing and misses on that slider. Would lead you to feel pretty decent about him. Fairbanks had a weird week again where he pitched the 2 innings, including the loss in extra innings against Boston on Tuesday, and did not appear until Sunday, where he gave up a home run. So he was the guy that was maybe contending for that A1 kind of closer type high leverage guy. But Castillo, I think, has really had that job out of the gate since April 1st, and I think is still kind of holding on to that for dear life. Nick Anderson, by the way, was, and I'll just bring it up now because we're talking about the bullpen, at least on the Friday game. Nick Anderson was thrown off a mound, the bullpen mound this weekend at the Trop. And Tricia Whitaker, the sideline reporter for Bally Sports Sun, was doing a piece on it during one of the games and saying that everything is progressing nicely and all the issues that were plaguing him in spring training have seemed to go away. We won't really know that until he's back on the mound in a big league game and pitching effectively. But of course, you'll remember during spring training the piece that I did on Nick Anderson, and I expressed some concern for him and his ability to come back and at least effectively. I'm still not completely sold, but it seems like everyone around him is optimistic, including pitching coach Kyle Snyder. So Nick Anderson, of course, the highest of high leverage relievers, going back to that miraculous World Series run a season ago. It looks like he'll be back sometime in August, as was initially projected, in February. So, Castillo, Fairbanks, Fire Eisen don't really matter because I think towards the back end of the season we'll be getting our regular guy back in Anderson, and if he's anywhere close to where he was in the regular season of 19 or 20, watch out, because that, you want to talk about an X factor, adding a really terrific player to a team that's already very, very good, and stupendous bullpen as well. They're going to start kind of blowing teams out of the water late in games, even though they already have been. It's just, one more guy to add to the mix. The only guy that we had mentioned was Colin McHugh, who ended up getting the win. He had to come in after Fleming, and we're actually getting a call now, so we're going to go ahead and go to the phones. And we have now Seth calling in from Los Angeles. Seth, you're on the William Haynes Show.
Yes, it's been good. I didn't catch much of the Shohei Ohtani show yesterday because I was on a plane coming back from Florida, actually. But now that you're doing this show super late at night Florida time, it's actually normally late at night here in California. So I'm back to normal.
Well, that worked out very well. I'll say that.
Yes. Yeah, it did. It did. I mean, I'm honestly kind of glad I didn't see last night's or yesterday's game, because I feel like I just would have been sad the whole time watching the bullpen kind of just choke. Like, we almost look like the Angels bullpen usually does on any given day, which is just kind of rough. But I mean, when you're up against somebody like Ohtani basically going pretty much Super Saiyan and just like destroying us all by himself, you can't really, like, what can you do, really? Our guys are just mortal men.
That is a good point. Yeah, no, Ohtani was absolutely crushing the Rays, the entire weekend series. Leading off the show tonight, I was pointing out Kittredge and Thompson, a couple of guys who had been really strong this season, but maybe a bit on the downturn. And Thompson's last couple of outings have been rough, and it was on the Sunday contest. He gave up, I think, a couple of doubles. So that's something maybe to be concerned about. But the rest of the guys out of the pen, for Whistler, I think he was bound to give up a run, and it was just a solo shot, and the same for Fairbanks. So I don't think we're going to be in any type of 2019 New York Mets bullpen situation. I think it was just more of a blip and kind of an off day for the team. But yeah, you would have liked to have the sweep there, but 2 of 3, you'll take that.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh yeah, we should have season series swept the Angels, gone 7-0. I mean, like, let's be realistic here. This is a team that has Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani on it. Yes, Mike Trout is not here at the moment, but I mean, is it really realistic to assume that one of them wasn't going to go Super Saiyan and just completely destroy us, like, at some point in this season series? Like, it tends to happen like every year. I mean, you go back to 2019. I was there for the Angels series where I believe we didn't sweep them, but I think we came pretty close at Angel Stadium, and then I believe we won the series at the Trop as well. But there was that game where Shohei hit for the cycle against us. I mean, like, this happens pretty much once every year. Like, with a team as talented as they have offensively, you're going to get one of those games where just one of those two, like, god-tier talents that they have just completely goes off. I mean, and also they've got 2 other really scary bats lurking, which is Walsh and Rendon, and I think the success that we had in this season series is really keeping those 2 quiet. I mean, Walsh did hardly anything against us pretty much the entire season in terms of, like, the season series matchup. He barely did anything against us. Rendon had a couple of big hits, but that's pretty much it. Like, you said he hit like a bunch of his home runs against us, but they were all kind of like, I feel like they were like just kind of like garbage time things, or like at the very beginning of the game, and then ended up not mattering in the end. So, the fact that we seem to have kept those 2 relatively quiet probably doesn't hurt us in the grand scheme of things. I'm not really surprised. The Angels are not very good this year, which is pretty much every year. As a California resident who lives not very far from there, I experience this a lot.
Even against a team around 500 or a little bit below, I think, putting into perspective, going 6-1 against any team like that is something to be proud of, and this team is going to be a little bit tested even more going forward. That 2-game set against Washington, a team that has been red hot, Cal Schwarber especially, and talk about another chance to maybe slow down a superstar. The Rays failing to do so in Ohtani, but will get their chance. And then later in the week with Vladimir Guerrero, so it seems like this is never going to stop. They're going to have these superstar hitters that they're going to have to try and slow down.
Yeah, I was actually calling in because I was interested to hear what you might be thinking about this coming 2-game set. I've noticed that we haven't done very well against our friends from DC. They've been kind of, our performance against them has been middling at best. It seems like in the last few years. Maybe it's the influence of the old Montreal Expos creeping in. Who knows? I know that your pseudo competitor sort of counterpart Alex from Raise the Roof really despises the as he calls them, the Montreal Expos, for their history with that city and the connection that they have to Sternberg and his whole Montreal plan. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how it's going to go. It really seems we've been kind of middling lately. There was that one. I remember explicitly the one game that we had last year where just the back-breaking extra innings home run off of Anderson that might have been like a creeping sign of things to come in the playoffs that was hit by, I don't remember which national it was that hit that, but it was like the first pitch of extra innings in one of the games that the Nationals played against us at the Trop, and there were a bunch of people dooming really hard on the Discord because, the season's all over, that's backbreaking, and then we literally clinched the division like a week later.
Yeah, and I do recall that game. It was Brandon Lau hit his solo game-tying shot, I think in the 9th, maybe even with 2 outs to tie the game, and then you're right, to have that letdown in extra innings, that was a heartbreaker. And that was a good call on you as well, saying the last, not just this year, but the last couple of years, the struggles. Because I think in 2020, I think they went 1-4 maybe against Washington and a split of a 2-game set earlier this month at the Trop. Yeah, I think they're just one of those teams. Going into the season, I predicted they would be in the running for the division, at least in second place. I really liked what they had together. I thought they had a really strong lineup, some decent additions to the bullpen. There's some things about this team to like, and especially when you play those 2-game series, you're just probably going to take 1 or 2 and you kind of move on. And that's my main concern. Like I was saying earlier, I think Kyle Schwarber, kind of like an Ohtani, is just playing out of his mind. He's going to be impossible to stop, and you can just kind of hope to maybe go around him and go it that way. So if anything, I'm not too much worried about the wins and losses, but just stack yourself up against a good team right now and see where you're at.
Right. The biggest problem, too, with the Nationals, it's not like the Angels, where I feel like there were definitely incidents where we probably could have pitched around Ohtani in a couple of those instances in the series that we just played this weekend. There are probably a few moments where we could have done that. But here's the problem. Normally with Ohtani, you're facing Mike Trout immediately after that. So you can't pitch around him then. With what we've got coming in the National Series, Schwarber's swinging a red-hot bat in the leadoff spot. You cannot walk him, because if you intent walk him, or if you just otherwise try to pitch around him and end up walking him, you end up with Turner right after that, or Josh Harrison or somebody like immediately after, who's probably going to at least move him up, maybe if not get a hit themselves, and then you get to deal with Juan Soto.
Yeah, so, exactly. Get a load of the 1 through 4. You got Kyle Schwarber leading off, and he's hit I think 13 or 14 home runs in the month of June, and then as you said, you walk 15. Him. Turner is hitting .310. Juan Soto, one of the best hitters in the game right now, and then if that's not enough hitting, cleanup, Josh Bell. He's not having a terrific year, but is I think one of the feared power hitters out there. So yeah, you're right. And then a decent middle of the lineup as well. So. And it doesn't help that they're probably playing as good as they have maybe all season. A bit similar to that run in 2019, where I think they were under 500 after the month of May, and then really came on strong. So I'm not sure we're getting kind of the same thing, but you never know.
19-31, was 2020. Was 2019?
That's right.
They completely turned it around. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I will say this: the one thing the Rays have really got going for them in this series is, our pitching matchup isn't amazing. Rich Hill is definitely going to be more effective against the 2 big lefties. Like I'm not as concerned about him in terms of dealing with Schwarber and Soto, because he's dealt with them. I think he dealt with them before and he certainly faced them in the postseason before. Like he's dealt with them. Well, specifically Schwarber and Soto, he's dealt with both of them in the postseason in the past.
That's
so
right.
I'm not particularly concerned about him. What I am concerned about is Michael Wacha. I feel like Walker's probably going to get freaking shelled. So we just got to kind of like take our lumps on that one. But I will say this: what we've got going for us, their pitching matchup is not favorable. They got Joe Ross, who is not all that good. He's fine. He's had like a couple of decent starts and then a horrible start sandwich in between those two in the last 3 starts he's had. And then of course we get John Lester, who we absolutely like shellacked in his start against us. Like he got like completely obliterated by the Rays the last time. So I mean, unless he finds a whole nother gear, I think that game we can at least go blow for blow with the Nationals, as Walker probably gives up like 15 runs in the first inning. we might be able to at least, hold our own, because Lester is pretty much just as bad. With Ross, I think it's probably a bit, we don't really know because we haven't faced him, but I think we probably can do okay. So I think the one thing we've got going for us, even as potent as their offense is, the pitching matchup is not in their favor. And their bullpen has been performing better of late, but it's not necessarily like anything to, shake a stick at. So I'm not horribly concerned about their pitching. I'm just hoping that we don't give up like 15 runs is what I'm kind of scared of.
Yeah, I think like a couple of weeks ago it'll end up as a series split, and I think really the only boxes I would like to see checked would be Wander Franco headed in the right direction, and then maybe just the bullpen reinforcing kind of their greatness and that they're maybe not going to be on the downturn. So, but as always with the Rays, it's going to be interesting, the 1-run games and everything like that. So, Seth, thank you again for taking the time. I know, 2:30 out of anyone that listens to the show, you're probably the only one that would call in because, of course, the West Coast is a bit easier for you. So, again, thanks for taking the time, and we hope to hear from you again sometime soon.
Of course, I'm hoping for another good Rich Hill start to really just drive the nail in that he's good.
Absolutely, and he's always fun to watch. Yeah, absolutely. All right, man, have a good one.
Absolutely. You too. Bye-bye.
All right, and that was Seth in Los Angeles. Seth, thanks so much again for the call. Again, anyone else listening, 877-566-1020. I got to admit, 2:30 on a Tuesday, I was not expecting a phone call, but of course, anytime it is, it's so great to chat with some of you guys. And I know we've had some more listeners as of late, and I look forward not just to getting the sweet serenades of my voice out to the world, but also kind of hearing it bounce off of some of you guys and hear what you guys have to say about anything and everything Tampa Bay Rays baseball. But getting back to where we were, as we maybe speed it up a little bit here, trying to get through the Angels series. The only thing that I think we had left about the 4-3 Friday win was Colin McHugh, who came in for Fleming in the 6th. It was Fleming in the first 2 outs and then walked Max Stacy to bring up the righty Taylor Ward, who I guess they did not want Fleming to see for a second time in a 3-3 tie. So they bring in Colin McHugh, the righty, who then proceeds to give up a double to Ward, second and third with 2 outs, so things maybe could have gone awry, but McHugh, who has been very good as of late, struck out Iglesias to get out of the jam. And another thing for McHugh, we don't see him in jams very much. It seems like either he's really getting shelled or he's putting up 1-2-3 inning after 1-2-3 innings. So that was good to see, and you want to talk about checking off the boxes for a guy. Colin McHugh is doing just about everything. I'm waiting for them to make him a starter if they need to, because if the way he's pitching, I think he would be a tremendous kind of swing guy, 3 or 4 innings to start a game. But it seems like right now they're content with having him be a 2 or 3 inning guy every 3 or 4 days, depending on how much he pitched the outing prior. So another guy, and I think was really a crucial part in getting this starting rotation built up after the Glasnow injury. There was a couple of guys like Wacha and Shane McClanahan, who the Rays were kind of loafing around on, trying to get them stretched out. I think Shane, they weren't going to go more than 5 innings or 75 pitches. Wacha, a guy they were keeping at 2 or 3 innings, 50 pitches. Glasnow goes down, the alarm bells go off. All of a sudden, they've got to get these guys ready to start games. And in some of those rough outings, they needed 2 or 3 innings to be covered. Even Ryan Yarbrough going 2 innings against Boston last week, they needed bulk innings, and McHugh not only able to eat up those innings, but to do them scoreless and to do them efficiently with the pitch count and throwing strikes almost nearly every single pitch and be able to be used more frequently. Hard to speak too highly of McHugh right now. He's doing a lot of things right. An ERA of 2.05, even after a couple of really rough outings to start the season. So a 4-3 win for the Rays on Friday, thanks to bases loaded hit by pitch by Brandon Lau. Things just broke in their direction. The base runners were running plenty. They only struck out 7 times as well, walked 4, and then with 10 hits mixed in there as well, it's a surprise they didn't come away with more than 4 runs. To be totally honest, and they go 2 for 11 with runners in scoring position. The Saturday game, 13-3 on Devil Ray Day. A lot of exciting things. It was a season high in attendance. Hard to say when we'll get this many again. It was just under 17,000. I regret that I couldn't be there in attendance because it seemed like the place was really rocking, and it was quite a day as well to watch the team play, as of course with the 13 runs. I've got the note here. It was the 7th time this season the Rays have scored 10 or more runs in a game. So, and it definitely feels that way. The offense, it seems like when they're on, they are really, really dominating, and that was the case on Saturday against Alex Cobb and company of the Angels. A bit more of a quiet first inning than it was Friday. It was Shane McClanahan starting the game outright, and maybe not his best start of the season, but certainly up there. And again, as I said at the beginning of the show, I think he's really progressing to the next level. You can see some different and more advanced pitch sequencing, but I think if anything, in maturity that comes in simplicity, he's really going back to trusting the fastball, which he had gone away from a few starts ago, mainly that White Sox start where he was just throwing slider after slider after slider like he was Ryan Yarbrough or something from the left side. But if you got 97, 98, you can crank it up to triple digits a couple times a game. That's a pitch that you really should be kind of leaning on, and kind of like a Glasnow-esque, especially the pre-slider Glasnow when he was really leaning on that fastball. I think that's a good comp kind of for where McClanahan is at right now, kind of a 2018-2019 Glasnow type. But the race to 2 strikes, that's what he always talks about. Fastball called strike, fastball followed off, 0-2. That was happening a lot. And a slider at about 92 that had such tight break on it and broke quickly down and into righties. That's a really hard pitch on a 0-2 count to lay off of. And he was getting a ton of swing and miss. Again, give credit to Mike Zunino for calling a terrific game behind the plate, as he always does, day game after night game. That's not incredibly easy to do, but I think the Rays are making the right decision and when they're really trying to lean on this pitching staff and get them feeling confident. Because I think I bring it up because I don't think it can be understated. The loss of Glasnow and everyone having to step up. Not only is it a literal thing, a physical thing that they've got to do, but it's a mental kind of block as well, as they're kind of being thrust into bigger roles. So to have a catcher maybe that you feel more comfortable with calling the signs. Not that Mejia is a bad defensive catcher, but he's certainly not as good framing, maybe stealing a couple strikes. I don't think is nearly as good of a backstop. And again, with putting the fingers down, there's no one in the world right now I'd rather have than Glasnow or than Zunino, excuse me. The Freudian slip there with Glasnow, that cracks me up. But with Zunino, really since coming over to the Rays, a lot of raving about his ability to get familiar with the pitching staff and know them inside and out and know what fingers to put down at what time and really pushing the right buttons. And McClanahan was able to get into a pretty decent groove there early, 1-2-3 in the first, and then a leadoff walk in the second that they were able to navigate around thanks to a nifty play. It was by G-Man Choi on a bunt to get the lead runner, which is kind of rare for a team like the Rays to do, but they were able to execute. Then in the bottom of the second, the Rays put up a couple of runs on a 2-run line drive homer for Manuel Margot. It was his 8th of the year. And he continues to have a pretty good season hitting at the plate and a good power season as well. 248 average, a 402 slugging, and it's just always terrific at putting the ball in play, especially with men on base. And one of those guys, maybe not looking to hit home runs, but just looking to hit the ball hard. And, if you can just get it in the air a little bit, that's where those power numbers start to come in good. So gave them a 2-0 lead at that point. And then for Shane McClanahan in the third, just a really difficult inning. In the box score, it looks worse than it really is, but give Sugar Shane, as I like to call him, as he calls himself. If you're not familiar why I call him that, I mean, that's his Twitter handle. That's been his nickname. And McClanahan, it's not always an easy name to say. Sugar Shane is much easier to pronounce, at least for me. In the third, it was a leadoff double for Lagares, and then a single to Fletcher to follow. And then just a really couple of unlucky plays. A double by Ohtani that scored a run that got just a kind of a Baltimore chop off the infield dirt that got right over the glove of Choi. And if that is into his mitt, he's able to get him out at first and things go differently. But instead it gets past him, goes all the way to the wall. There was another double for Rendon that I think just kind of barely found the gap. They're doubles again in the scorebook, but just kind of some unlucky balances. And we've seen guys, race pitchers that will get really worked up, get really frustrated. Kind of like Rich Hill, you'll see sometimes he's getting upset with himself. Blake Snell, I think, is the perfect example, and he would lose control, just start walking a bunch of guys. He loses composure. It's a tough thing to deal with when, you should be getting outs maybe, getting weak contact, whatever the case, and it's getting by your defense for doubles. That's a tough thing to get around. So gave up 4 hits in the inning, but limited the damage to 3 runs. That's still a decent chunk, but there were going to be a run scored regardless, and so it really could have gotten away from him. And I think he had thrown 50 or 60 pitches after 3. So that could have been a turning point in the game. Instead, he locks it down, gets out of the jam, strikes out a guy, and then gets Iglesias to fly out to right with some men on base to kind of get out of that jam there. And then after then, really, really took off. Got a 1-2-3 inning in the 4th, 5th, and the 6th. If you count the error on Wander Franco, where it was a pretty hard-hit ground ball right to him, and he just kind of bobbled it in the glove. If you count that an out, Shane McClanahan retired the last 12 batters he faced, and then if you don't count it, he retired, the last 10 that he faced, which is still very, very impressive. So, not only that he was able to get out of that inning and that they didn't have to pull him out in the 3rd, but that he was able to come out with a pretty high pitch count and then work some really quick innings and be efficient and give the pitching staff some length. It was a big deal, and one of those things that kind of a thankless job in a way, and especially when your offense scores 13 runs, that kind of steals the show. But that's one of the quirks about my show. I'll give credit to stuff that maybe not a lot of people are talking about, but I think is really important in the long run. And I think really good for McClanahan. I think no one will replace Tyler as the ace of the staff, but I think Shane is as close as you're going to get, because I don't think Ryan Yarbrough is that guy. I don't think Rich Hill at 41 years old is that guy. Someone has got to kind of step up every 5th day as someone maybe you can lean on a little bit. And we're watching McClanahan grow up in front of our eyes. I remember saying after that White Sox series, continuing to pound the table, send him down, bring up Patino, whatever. The growing pains were just kind of getting to me. But that just shows why I'm not in the front office, and the guys that are there, because they knew to be patient with him and give him some time. And it looks like right now it's paying off, and he picked up his 3rd win of the season. He's 3-2. And then, of course, the offense just continued to roll. Extra base hits galore, but just kind of dinging up a lot of pitchers as well. Just a ton of singles. They put up 4 runs in the 4th, 1 run each in the 5th and the 6th, including a towering blast by Zunino. It only went about 350 feet, but a launch angle of about 45 degrees. I mean, it looked like it was hit like almost straight up in the air, and it just kept going and going and going, and managed to work its way around like the C and the D ring to get into the left field stands. We talk about Zunino all the time about, kind of looking like a golfer hitting those home runs. But taking that to a more literal sense, the color commentator on the broadcast for Bally Sports Sun, Doug Wechter, compared him to Phil Mickelson, and I felt like I was validated a little bit with kind of the golfing comparison, and that's really what it looked like, kind of teeing off, just trying to drive the golf ball as far as you can. And for Zunino, hitting his 16th home run of the year, he's got to be an all-star at the catcher position, especially with Kevin Cash being the manager, former major league catcher himself, Zunino playing for him, all that stuff. I can just hear Joe Buck saying all that stuff. I can hear it. I can almost taste it. And we got to see Zunino in Colorado in a couple weeks because he definitely deserves it. And it's kind of amazing. He's hitting under 200 right now at 197, but is having a terrific power season as well with everything he's doing at the plate. And then in the seventh inning, they had 11 men come to the plate, and they scored 5 runs on 4 hits, and just not a whole lot to say. I mean, a lot of doubles, a couple of home runs that we mentioned. Brett Phillips had a terrific day with his first triple of the year. He goes 2 for 4 with 3 runs knocked in. Ji-Man Choi had a terrific day, 4 for 5 with 2 runs knocked in, and a terrific weekend he had because he had a home run on Sunday. So maybe Choi breaking out of a bit of a slump that he's been on since coming off the IL with the groin, the second IL stint of the season. And then also as well, Randy Arozarena, 3 for 4. That was his 10th 3-hit game of the season. And I think he's leading or close to leading the majors in that category. And it's something I don't really think about. And a lot of that, lately he's been running out a lot of infield singles. And something that I think he could do more of, just put the ball in play because he is so quick. I mean, we saw him, beat a horse in a foot race in Mexico this offseason. He's got incredible foot speed, and so it doesn't have to be all like the home runs and stuff that he hit in the playoffs last year, but just hard hit ground balls is what I've been saying since April in that Marlins series when he did it on opening day. That's the player that I think moving forward he'll be. He can be a 270. Maybe even a 280 hitter, but can give you some pop and some power also at times. It's a stolen base threat. I think he's going to be maybe a 20-20 or 25-25 player with the home runs and stolen bases. So he'll be regarded as one of those players and is certainly an adventure, kind of like a Malik Smith type in the outfield where he's going to make diving attempts. Won't always come up with the ball like a Kiermaier, but is going to attempt to make the play and is talented enough to make all the plays, just whether or not the ball finds his mitt or not, because I think it was Sunday, a double that was kind of in and out of the mitt on what would have been an incredible highlight reel diving catch out there in left. And outside of that, everything as you would expect. I think Joey Wendell hit a ball on the screws with the bases loaded with 2 outs, and it just hit it right to the infielder. I think maybe the shortstop, Fletcher, I think, or whoever was playing there at the time. So he got a tough break, and it seemed like he maybe had a bit of a rough series. But overall, I think everyone had a terrific weekend. Maybe save for Franco, but everyone else, not every single at bat's coming through. But again, Hall of Famers are going 3 for 10, so you're not going to come through every time. So at least everyone had about one moment, big moment over the course of the weekend. And on that Saturday game, Wander Franco was the only guy in the starting lineup to not get a hit. And so that kind of highlighted the struggles for him because everyone else was really crushing Angels pitching. And by the way, this season against the Halos, the Rays against the Halos bullpen, the Rays have more runs scored than innings against them. Like they're scoring more than a run an inning against the bullpen is what I should have said. Like an ERA over 9. For the Angels bullpen against the Rays this year. So, terrific pitchers coming out of the pen for Los Angeles. But, again, you can only beat who you're facing, and the Rays have crushed Angels pitching this year. Starters, relievers, it doesn't matter. 13 runs on Saturday. Again, the 7th time this season the Rays have scored 10 or more runs in a game. It was Drew Rasmussen for an inning, and then Lewis Head for the final 2 in a blowout. And he's going to be optioned down, it looks like, tomorrow. And it looks like probably Mike Brasso would be called up to hold the team over for a couple days I guess until Taylor Walls is ready to come off the injured list, because it doesn't look like they're going to take my advice and put him just back to the Durham Bulls and let Wander Franco take these things. But maybe, just maybe, by the time Walls is ready to come up, they may be sending Franco back down if he's hitting 100. It's going to be tough to say. Going into now the Sunday contest, it was the 6-4 loss and prevented the season series sweep against Los Angeles. It was starting on the mound Ryan Yarbrough, and he gave them 6 pretty strong innings. He was working in and out of jams pretty much the whole game, but was a pretty good Yarbrough start in that he was 20 of 24 as far as establishing the first pitch strike. So faced 24 men, started off 0-1 to 20 of the 24. Threw 98 total pitches, 70 for strike, so was just absolutely obliterating the strike zone. 17 called strikes, 9 swing and misses, and 26 foul balls mixed in there as well. And that, I think, is a sign of really things going well, is the called strikes. Kind of confusing, guys. Seems like when he's not pitching well, it's that he's not fooling anyone, and they're just kind of teeing off on kind of the change-up, sliders, whatever you want to call the pitch, kind of down in the zone. But when he's getting called strikes, that's how you know guys aren't really seeing him that well. And against a decent, right now, even without Trout, Angels lineup, that was a good approach. And with Zunino again, so he caught all 3 games this weekend, and he had another good day at the plate, did Zunino, with a 2 for 3. And a couple singles, no extra base hits for him. But either way, to start the game, double play, allowed a 1-2-3 basically in the first, put him down in the second. Then in the third, for the Angels, things got a little bit interesting. The scoring didn't really happen until later, but it was a leadoff double for Taylor Ward. Then a fly out to right moves him to third with 1 out. He hit someone with a pitch, and with runners at the corners and 1 out, it was a shallow pop fly into right. Probably should have been Manuel Margot's ball, because he was coming in on it, but Brandon Lowe drifting out there into shallow right. He ends up getting it with his momentum kind of taking him away from the play. And so the runner at third, Taylor Ward, tags up to go, I believe, and then kind of stops himself. The throw from Brandon Lowe is no good, and it gets away, but it was a terrific job of Ryan Yarbrough backing up the play, and he gets the carom off kind of the wall there, down past the left field line, kind of, if you can imagine, down near the visitors' dugout. And he gets it to Mike Zunino, who wasn't even kind of looking at the play. He didn't think they would be able to get Ward, and it wouldn't even be close. Instead, he kind of looks at the last second, gets the ball from Yarbrough, and tags Ward to keep it scoreless for the third and final out of the third inning. And so, talk about working in and out of jams. That was kind of an all-timer. One of the weirdest double plays you'll probably see this season, if not ever. You don't see stuff like that very often. Worked out kind of, well, not really. A leadoff walk in the fourth, ended up giving a run off of it. It was a walk to Ohtani. He's still second base, and just another chapter of a terrific weekend for him, as he showcased just about everything he can do at the plate. Can hit, 500-foot bombs, can steal bases, can bunt, all that stuff, doubles, triples, you name it. He did everything but pitch basically this weekend, and that's only because the scheduling didn't line up. And then it was just one of those plays between second and third, or first and second rather, and kind of shallow right. Brandon Lowe playing in that extreme shift, and we've seen him all the time kind of take hits away in that zone, and ranging over to pick up the ball and maybe off of his knees or whatever, making the throw to first. Could not get it in time. It was just kind of one of those plays, and that allowed a run to score, so they're down 1-0. In the fourth, in the bottom of the fifth, it was a solo home run with 2 outs by Brandon Lowe. They get another runner all the way to third base, but can't do anything with it thanks to a strikeout by Yandy Diaz. And an interesting approach for the Angels this series against Yandy that I just wanted to point out. They were shifting him to the other way, basically, daring him to pull the baseball, and they pitched him inside basically every pitch. So, as much as you'd like to go the other way, you can't when they're pitching, to your chin. And it seems like maybe that's his blind spot in what is otherwise a terrific strike zone. Will chase some of those pitches up and in, whatever. And now that that's on tape, I'm wondering if maybe more teams are going to attack him in that way. I know not every team is as extreme with the shifts, as a Joe Madden managed outfit, but something to think about. And we talk about that a lot with Yandy Diaz, how to maybe attack him, just throw strikes early, whatever. But I think the Angels might have found a good way to attack him. We'll keep our eyes on that. As another former Rays coach, Davey Martinez, I believe he was a coach. I know he's at least a player for the Rays. They'll face him this week in D.C. That home run by Lau in the fifth made it 1-1, and that was good to see him get a home run off of, is that right? A left-handed pitcher, and I believe he's now 9 for 90 this season against lefties. Still a horrible average, and we'll probably talk about that later this week. Kind of the splits, righties versus lefties that some of the main guys have this season, because it is a bit interesting. I would say Lau, especially the most, being so bad against lefties. Then in the sixth, the Angels put up a run on Yarbrough, another leadoff single and a double to bring him in. That double to Ohtani. So you kind of just get Ohtani'd right there. That's all I'll say. And Yarb's giving up a little bit of contact, but was able to limit the damage to just a run. And then where things came to fall apart a little bit was they go to the bullpen in the seventh. Thompson comes out to face the 7-8-9, leadoff double to Ward, and then another double to the 9-man Lagares to score a run. Then they go to Jeffrey Springs, who gives up an RBI triple to Ohtani. So you got Ohtani again, give up a couple of runs. Then it was Matt Whistler giving up a solo shot off of a slider in the eighth. About time someone teed off on one of those pitches, and you start to see he had some struggles in San Francisco, but I'm hoping it was kind of a blip in what has been a good Rays tenure to this point, certainly you would say. And then in the ninth inning, it was Pete Fairbanks pitching for the first time since Tuesday, giving up a home run just on a fastball. Everything looked normal to me. I mean, the velo was good, 97, and that was the main thing because it was down to about 92, 93 in that 11th and final inning against Boston on Tuesday. So I think everything's going to be fine with him and just kind of getting him, I guess, back into the workload because he doesn't usually go that long without pitching. So just keep that in mind. For the Rays in the sixth, they were able to actually take a 4-2 lead on a 3-run homer by Choi. It was Franco and Meadows starting the inning with singles, and for Franco finally kind of just blew pit into left. 70 miles an hour off the bat. He was probably hitting multiple line drive fly balls at 100 plus, all caught for outs. Of course, the weak kind of blooper ends up getting a hit for him, but I think that broke him out of a 0 for 16, and he's hitting now 136 on the season in a week. Six games worth of at bats. So still very small sample size. And then Franco did as well walk in the seventh. So I think he'll be fine if the Rays decide they want to keep giving him time. He'll come back out of this, and we'll see more of what he did on Tuesday. I truly believe that. So good on Choi as well for getting the home run, his third of the season. Lau's homer, by the way, was his 15th. And so that gave them that's 4-2 lead in the sixth. And like Seth was saying in the call, it was a bit demoralizing just to see the bullpen give it away because 4-2 after 6, you should be locking that up like they did on Friday. But instead it was Thompson, again, with a couple of doubles, Springs giving up the triple, and then it was Whistler and Fairbanks each giving up a home run respectively, and the worst the pen has looked in quite some time. Kittredge and I think Thompson might be a bit on the downturn, but those other guys, Whistler, Fairbanks, and Springs, those are guys that should be pretty consistent, but it's bound to happen. You're not going to pitch perfect every single game, and so that was just a contest that kind of got away from him a little bit, and that was the only thing standing between them and a season series sweep against the Halos, and it just wasn't meant to be. You're bound for one of those games to happen once a year. They got Ohtani'd all series. He goes 3 for 4 with 3 batted in and a walk in the Sunday contest. So with him doing that, and again, you're talking about the MVP of the American League. It's not the Rays pitcher's fault that they got Ohtani. That's what I'm trying to say. The Rays offense, they strike out 11 times, walk 3 with the 6 hits, 1 for 5 with runners in scoring position. And 4 runs should have been enough. It wasn't. And again, those things happen. Good start for Yarbrough, though. Was really impressed with him and was just executing stuff. And, that's the main thing, was even going up and in to the righties, which you always like. Even hit a guy by a pitch, which, again, I don't condone. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but when he can get the cutter up and into righty, sometimes it's going to hit a guy, but it shows he's confident to go up and in. Sometimes he's not, and he just wants to pick away at the corners away, and that's when he'll get attacked for 10 or 11 hits. So would like to see more of that from Yarbrough, and the whole starting rotation again is moving in the right direction. So that was the weekend series for the Rays. What we're going to do now, take another short break. When we return, quickly recap preview the Tuesday and Wednesday series against the Washington Nationals. We'll preview more in depth the Tuesday game and talk a little bit about Wednesday, and then get you up on out of here. So quick break. Again, don't go anywhere. You want to talk Rays, 877-566-1020 at WHBC Official on Twitter. We'll be right back.
Are you a fan of Florida State University athletics? Then the WHBC produced podcast, FSU Sports Daily, is for you. Returning this fall, FSU Sports Daily is your everyday look into everything from Florida State football, basketball, baseball, soccer, and much, much more. The William Haynes Show will be right back.
HBC. And at 3:04 on this Tuesday morning, we are back on the William Haynes Show. See, I told you we were going to go an hour and 15 plus again. That's just how it goes. Again, number to call, 877-566-1020. We're not talking Rays and Nats this Tuesday and Wednesday, a 2-game set in our nation's capital. The Washington Nationals right now at 38-38, right at 500 with a win tonight at home against the Mets in what was a makeup game. I want to say that was from the opening day series that got canceled because of COVID. I think they were making that up, and they'd come off of a 4-game split in Miami against the Marlins. More about the Nationals. They are not just coming off of it, but it was from June 13th to June 24th. They had won 10 of 11 games, and the only thing standing in their way of an 11-game win streak was a doubleheader loss to the Mets. And you pretty much, most of the time, are splitting doubleheaders. It's really hard to sweep them, especially in those 7-inning games. So they have been pretty hot lately. They are 7-3 in their last 10. So it's not just Kyle Schwarber, but the whole team is really hot right now, and we've been talking some about that. Kyle Schwarber, I believe, with a 2-home run game tonight, so it's not like he's cooling off anytime soon. I think Seth's at 16. I've got here 15 home runs in the month of June, and that's incredible. I think he's got on the season now, 24 home runs. So because of this month of June, has launched himself back into the home run race. I think Ohtani's got, 26, 27. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. close to the same. So Schwarber probably should be performing in the home run derby maybe this year too. That would be kind of cool to see. But would not like to see him do that against the Rays this week, and I think that's the main concern. I think like Ohtani, you can't really pitch around him. Seth made an outstanding, excellent point saying that you can't because of who's behind him, because Schwarber is hitting leadoff lately, and behind him you've got Turner, who's hitting 310. You've got Soto, who at 273 and is regarded as one of the game's best hitters at, just 22 years old. And you've got Josh Bell, who's not having a great season, but is a very good cleanup hitter. And they've got a terrific middle of the order as well. Guys like Josh Harrison, Starlin Castro. I mean, really, really hard. I mean, Ryan Zimmerman as well, who dinged up the Rays with a couple of home runs during that series a couple weeks ago at the Trop. That, by the way, the two teams did split. It was the Rays taking Game 1 by a score of 3-1. It was a Glasnow start where I think that was the one where he went. That was the one that Glasnow talked about. That was the first game he went cold turkey without the rosin and sunscreen, and he said he woke up the next day feeling soreness in places he didn't even know he could be sore in. So the 7-inning, I think, scoreless or 1 run, something like that. And the second game was that doubleheader, or sorry, not doubleheader, but extra inning game 111. And the Rays not able to score with runners in scoring position. What else is new? And what was kind of a heartbreaker game. I was there. That was a tough watch just to see that game. And the Rays come out on the losing end. So 2 games set against a pretty good team, especially that's red hot, even though they're at 500, 38-38. And I think they're only a handful of games out right now. With the win over the Mets tonight, because that was big for them, checking in on the standings, they're just 3 games back of first place in the NL East. And that's of the Mets at 40-34. So the Nats still very much a contention. They're still very much alive. I think Seth said, what was it, 17-31. They started off the 2019 season with, ended up winning the World Series. You can never count these guys out. It's a much different team now, but and to that point, they're going to miss Scherzer again, a guy that I don't think he's on the trading block anymore if he ever was, because I think the Nats going into the year were a playoff contender. I think they're going to remain that way and play to win the rest of the way. Steven Strasburg is out. They faced Patrick Corbin the first time, and he was not very good, and he's not going to pitch in this series. It doesn't look like it. The matchups on Tuesday, it'll be Rich Hill and Joe Ross, and then on Wednesday, it will be Michael Wacha and John Lester. So that game will be kind of a toss-up. I think the Rays have a better chance of maybe winning Game 1, but I'm probably a little bit more bullish on Michael Wacha than most people are right now, if I had to say. Looking at the numbers for the teams right now, I don't know how indicative it is because the Nats are probably at their peak, as hot as they've been all season. As a team, they are hitting about 20 points higher than the Rays, a team average of 248 compared to the Rays 229. They've scored about 100 less runs, though, which is interesting, so probably pretty bad with the runners in scoring position. They've got about the same amount of hits, so definitely you would see that. The Rays have got about 15 more home runs, 95-78. On base percentage is about the same, 316, 320. Team ERA, the Nats giving up about a half run more per game at 386 compared to the Rays of 338. And then opponent's batting average is about the same, 222 for the Rays, 227 for the Nats. So most ways you slice it, these are 2 pretty similar teams. The Rays right now 15 games over 500. The Nats at 500. So maybe just some things, a bit unlucky breaks for Washington so far this year. Getting into Game 1, that we preview in depth, Rich Hill against Joe Ross. Rich Hill, we'll start with him. He has not pitched against the Nats this season. And would not have last year either. So no recent matchups, but with the Dodgers has faced some of these guys a lot in his time over in the NL all those years. So, he's familiar with probably a lot of these hitters. His last time out, it was against the Boston Red Sox. He goes 5 innings of 1 run allowed on 3 hits, 5 walks, 5 strikeouts. It was the most walks, or I think the 3rd time he's walked 5 or more in the last 15 years. So not something he does often, but the Rays were able to put up 8 runs on the board that night. And, he pitched pretty effectively. The curveball came and went, as it has lately. And as we always say, that's the key if he's getting that pitch called for strikes. But the fastball has been coming on strong lately, too. So, do that against Boston lineup. He can easily replicate that, go 5 or 6 against the Nationals. And your daily reminder, manage expectations with these starters. This guy's 41 years old. Let's not be expecting 6 or 7 shutout. If you can get 5 innings of maybe a run allowed, that is enough to keep you in the game, and let the bullpen do their thing. Speaking of the bullpen coming in behind Rich Hill, I would imagine everyone's available in the A-pen, Fireisen especially, but also Fairbanks and Castillo. So that's 3 innings maybe right there if they want. So with 5 and 3, that would get you through 8, and then you mix in maybe not Kittredge. Thompson, I'm sure they're going to want to go to again. And with the off day, on Monday, I'm sure pretty much everyone is available, no matter what I say. So we'll leave it at that. And by the way, there's another off day on Thursday this week, so the Rays can be as aggressive with the pitching staff as they need to, maybe more so for the walk to start on Wednesday. Joe Ross this season, for Rich Hill, by the way, I didn't mention, 41-year-old left-hander, 6-2 on the year with a .352 earned run average, so he's having a darn good season. And then his counterpart on the mound, I guess at this point later tonight at 7:10 p.m., Joe Ross, the 28-year-old right-hander, is 4-7 on the year with a .412 earned run average. His last time out was probably his best start of the year. 7 innings scoreless against the Marlins, just 4 hits, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. Looking at his scouting report to see kind of what he's dealing with, or what he will be dealing. Schwarber led that game off with a home run, by the way, in case you're wondering. He's got sinker at about 92, 93, slider at about 83. So a sinker slider type. He's got a 4-seam off of the sinker as well, and a changeup at high 80s. So a lot of pitches right about at the same velo that are just moving in different directions. Sometimes the Rays are great at squaring that up. Other times, they'll be swinging through stuff. I would feel pretty good about that matchup, even with him, coming off of a good start. So, like I said, feel confident about the Rays offense. With him being a right-hander, they go traditional lineup, assuming Franco's in the order, which I assume he will be. The outfield from left to right, you go Randy probably in left, maybe Kiermaier in center, Phillips in right. If you want, we're going Margot, but let's say maybe they go Phillips to get the extra lefty in there. And then in the infield, you go Wendell at third, Franco at shortstop, Lau at second, G-Man Choi at first. Even with the off day, I'd imagine maybe they go Mejia with Rich Hill, but I think Zunino works better with Hill, but he only throws 2 pitches anyway, so hard to say. But I think the 41-year-old, if he wants Zunino, he probably gets Zunino, but you got to take it easy on that big guy with his knees, but we'll see. And then the DH thing, probably Meadows as well. They could even have Meadows play the field if they want, in place of maybe Brett Phillips, and that would allow them to DH, say, Margot, if they wanted to go in that direction. And not going to go into the matchups right now, or kind of the in-depth stuff, but Wednesday will be Waka and Lester. Waka 1-2 with a .466 ERA. Lester with a 1-3 record and a .499 ERA. So, as always, we will be on the air after the game tomorrow at 7:10. Wednesday is 4:05, so we'll talk about that tomorrow when we'll be on. So thank you for everyone tuning into the program. About an hour and a half show leading us into 3 in the morning, but that's okay. Great talking the weekend series against the Angels, previewing the series against the Nationals. Thank you as always for everyone for tuning in. Thank you for Seth for giving us a call. Again, make sure you're following us on Twitter at WHBC Official. You can follow us on Spreaker.com, where you're listening to this program right now on the show page. All that good stuff to never miss the show when it goes live. And we'll be on the air tomorrow after the game, hopefully talking a win. And as always, we'll talk to you then.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC.
W